This is a gesture of goodwill, so a glimmer of hope there, but it doesn't change the reality here, which is that Iran is still able to launch these attacks all across the Gulf. We've heard earlier today another attack on Kuwait, overnight in Bahrain and Jordan, and the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. The United States has not found a way to reopen it. Stephanie.
James, thank you. Let's bring in ABC News contributor and former ambassador to NATO, retired Lieutenant General Doug Lute. Doug, thank you so much for joining us. The U.S. says it has issued new sanctions targeting an international network helping Iran procure weapons. What do you make of that?
Well, I think we're in a pattern here of one step forward on a positive day, followed by 2 steps back. So on the positive side, you see things like the signing of the memorandum of agreement and a ceasefire that held for a while, but then steps back. So first strikes by both sides across the Strait of Hormuz, and now broader strikes deeper into Iran, but also by Iran across the Gulf. So the addition of sanctions is just another step in this escalatory cycle after the signing of the memorandum of agreement, which now appears dead.
And sir, as you know, it's not just the Strait of Hormuz under threat. Iran is now threatening to close off oil shipping routes in the Red Sea, too. How would that impact this war?
Well, for some time now, Iran's proxies in Yemen, the Houthis, which sit astride another choke point, another geographic choke point, the Bab el-Mandeb, which leads from the Arabian Sea up into the Red Sea. That group, the Houthis, have been still. They've been quiet. And I believe that Iran has held them in reserve as an escalatory feature, and may be putting them into action. So this is the potential for a significant additional stress on global marketplaces.
And sir, I also want to ask you about this Iranian U.S. citizen released by Iran, Dina Karari. Why release her now? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the timing's important. I think that, as the White House has said, this may be a modest first gesture by Iranian officials that there's something to talk about, and that Iran can be trusted at the negotiating table, and perhaps an attempt to suggest that they need to get back into negotiations.
Yeah. All right, sir. Thank you so much for your time, for your insights. I'm sure we will have you back very, very soon as this continues. Thank you. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the Trump administration is launching a diplomatic campaign to dismantle the International Criminal Court. The ICC is tasked with investigating and prosecuting genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. But the U.S. is not a member of the court and doesn't recognize its jurisdiction. At the beginning of his term, President Trump imposed sanctions on the ICC, claiming the court has engaged in illegitimate and baseless actions targeting America and our close ally, Israel. Now, Secretary Rubio says the ICC is waging war against the U.S.
When the ICC was born 24 years ago, they told us that it was merely a narrow backstop, a global court that would step in to prosecute only the gravest offenses, things like genocide and war crimes, and only when a nation's courts were unable to prosecute them on their own. But the truth is, it was something far more radical and extreme. It was a global tribunal staffed by unelected globalist bureaucrats who claim their power is almost unlimited.
The court says it serves as a vital pillar of the international justice system by ensuring accountability for the most serious international crimes and justice for victims. Former Biden administration ambassador at large for global criminal justice, Beth Van Schok, is here for more on this. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. First, what is your reaction to this announcement? Why do this now?
It's not clear why the timing was chosen at this point to launch this all-out assault on the ICC. It really marks a betrayal of almost 8 decades of U.S. policy that has largely supported global justice efforts. This began back after World War II with the establishment of the Nuremberg Tribunal and has continued almost uninterrupted since. There was a blip during the first Trump administration when additional sanctions were issued at that time, but this new so-called assault or campaign against the court really marks a dramatic reversal. And it's not clear why. There are no U.S. persons before the court. There are no matters under consideration where this may be threatened. There are no obligations placed upon the United States by the court. The prosecutor announced in 2021 that he was deprioritizing any consideration of international forces in the Afghanistan matter, and instead has issued arrest warrants for senior Taliban figures for systemic gender persecution against women and girls in Afghanistan. So most of what the court is doing is entirely consistent with U.S. policy around atrocities prevention and response and supporting survivors of the worst crimes known to humankind.
And I'm sure you've heard Secretary Rubio say the ICC is threatening American sovereignty and that they believe they should be in charge of U.S. laws. What's your response to that?
Well, as I mentioned, there are no matters before the court that involve any U.S. persons or personnel. All of the matters that the court is looking at in Central Africa, the Philippines, Burma, Myanmar, these are all matters where the United States has supported accountability for grave international crimes. We're not a member of the court. As a result, we have no obligations toward the court. But over the years, we have provided a whole range of
steps they'll take, but they say they are considering revoking visas and travel bans, further sanctions, and calling on other nations to reject the ICC's authority. I would imagine that that would have some sort of an impact.
Well, the United States has already issued sanctions against a number of judges and against the senior prosecutor and his two deputies. So those sanctions are already in place and have invoked and generated a number of diplomatic prices around the world. Our key allies in Europe and elsewhere, and almost all NATO members besides the United States and Turkey, are members of the court, and they care about the success of the court. They're promoting the work of the court, particularly given the investigation in Ukraine, which is right on Europe's, right within Europe's jurisdiction. And so our allies care deeply about the court. And so these moves by the United States run counter to the approaches of some of our key supporters and friends around the world.
And here's something else Secretary Rubio has said about the ICC, saying that the ICC threatens Border Patrol agents, removing violent criminals, Marines risking their lives for the homeland, and prosecutors working to dismantle terrorist plots. Is he suggesting the ICC could view some U.S. policies as crimes?
I think these concerns are well overblown and frankly manufactured in order to support this anti-ICC policy. The court only has jurisdiction over events, and these must rise to the level of atrocities, genocide, war crimes, or crimes against humanity, as you noted, on the territory of states parties or by the nationals of states parties. The United States is not a state party, and so nothing that happens on U.S. territory could ever fall within the jurisdiction of the court. It would only be crimes that were committed on the territories of states parties that might fall within the ICC's jurisdiction.
Beth, this has been very insightful. Thank you so much for your time. Former Biden administration ambassador at large for global criminal justice, Beth Van Schok. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up here on ABC News Live, first a close call on a flyby is now under investigation. How a flight by the Blue Angels near a beach left the crowd blown away.
Any pizza, any toppings, just $9.99, even stuffed crust.
Absolute magic!
for my Medicare number. Dad, come on. I know this is fraud. And get wise to Medicare fraud. Learn more at medicare.gov/fraud.
America's #1 streaming news. Live reporting, breaking new exclusives. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
Welcome back to ABC News Live First. Scientists say a massive great white shark is believed to be headed toward Cape Cod. The 14-foot, 1,700-pound shark is thought to be the largest great white ever tagged in the Atlantic. The shark was most recently spotted on the coast of North Carolina, and researchers say great whites typically migrate during the summer in search of food. And a dangerously low Blue Angels flyover caused chaos at Pensacola Beach in Florida. Take a look at this. Beachgoers were stunned as a jet flew just feet overhead. It's too close, sending tents, umbrellas, and chairs into the air. The Blue Angels are now reviewing the incident, saying safety is their highest priority. ABC's Rhiannon Alley has the details.
This morning, stunning video showing a Navy jet flying extremely low over Pensacola Beach in Florida during a Blue Angels flight demonstration. Watch as the jet soars just feet over the heads of dozens of beachgoers, tents seen collapsing, umbrellas and chairs lifting off the ground, and visitors stunned.
I've been coming for 10 years, and I've never seen a pass like that in my life. I'm going to remember that for probably the rest of my life.
John Austin Lynch was there and says the jets had been circling for nearly 2 hours up until that startling moment.
They were flying over our heads all day, and so, but nothing nearly like that. I would describe it as frightening in a good way, like when you're watching a movie hoping for the jump scare where it gets your heart pumping.
The crowd erupting in applause after the spectacle. The flyover was conducted to mark the start of the Blue Angels 2026 Pensacola Beach Air Show, this year honoring the 80th anniversary of the historic flight squadron. In a statement, the Blue Angels saying the aircraft was flying lower than standard profiles and that they're reviewing the incident, adding, "The safety of our hometown community, spectators, and our pilots is our highest priority."
Now, there are strict Navy and FAA safety standards they must follow, so this investigation will look at whether they did follow those. No one was hurt in this. Spectators definitely got a show they will never forget.
Wow, too close. Thanks to Rhiannon for that. And coming up here on ABC News Live First, celebrations and heartbreak at the World Cup. The incredible comeback by Argentina, sending them to the World Cup final. That's up next.
4 million people have turned to self to help make their financial dreams a reality. It's your turn.